At this point, all of us know that Gojo lost to Sukuna in the ultimate showdown. Most people say that Gojo did exceptionally well against Sukuna, and it was a close battle. Sukuna fans, on the other hand, say that Sukuna was holding back this entire time, and it wasn't actually that close. Now, what if Sukuna had fought Gojo with his full strength? What would be the outcome of these battles? Well, most of y'all would probably say that it'll be the same, and I believe that too. However, before we decide on anything, let's gather all the facts and talk about the original battle between Gojo and Sukuna. In the original timeline, Gojo went up against Sukuna, and it was mostly a battle of domains in the beginning. For most of the fight, Gojo's domain stood no chance against Sukuna's malevolent shrine, and it even managed to damage Gojo. However, during the second half of this battle, Sukuna unleashed Mahoraga, who adapted to Gojo's infinity, and this is where things get awkward. Gojo stands argue that Sukuna should have fought Gojo with his own strength and not use Mahoraga to adapt to his infinity. Well, Gojo put up a great fight against this Sukuna-Mahoraga duo, and even managed to damage Sukuna. It seemed like Gojo had won this battle, but that was not the case unfortunately, as my man Gojo got sliced in half. As if things weren't bad enough, Uraume even said that Sukuna wasn't using his full potential. This leads fans to questioning what if Sukuna fought Gojo with his full strength right from the beginning. For this, we've gathered some interesting theories from all across the multiverse, and without any further ado, let's dive into them. For scenario 1, we will assume that Sukuna is fighting Gojo in Megumi's body, just like the original timeline. However, this time around, he stops messing around and decides to go bonkers right from the beginning. Before we talk further, what exactly makes Heian-era Sukuna different from his usual self? First things first, Heian-era Sukuna is just ugly AF. You might as well call him a Chad version since they look a lot alike. He also possesses 4 arms and some extra mouths, which are definitely not there for kissing or anything. These unique features allow Sukuna to use non-stop chants without straining his lungs. This exactly makes him insanely overpowered. Besides this, his physical strength and speed also boost up. Anyway, in this scenario, this overpowered Sukuna inside Megumi's body will go up against Gojo. Other than his overwhelming skills, he also possesses Megumi's curse technique and can summon Mahoraga at will. This allows him to bypass Gojo's infinity, and the end result of this battle would be quite similar to the original timeline. Just like Uraume said, Sukuna wouldn't even suffer one bit if he was using his full potential right from the beginning. Another interesting factor is that Gojo would also be fighting at his full potential without holding anything back, since he cannot recover Megumi's soul now that Sukuna has taken him over completely. In conclusion, we can just say that Sukuna would absolutely fold Gojo if he was fighting with his full potential inside Megumi's body. In this previous scenario, we assume that Sukuna was still inside Megumi's body and transformed into his Heian-era form. However, in this scenario, we'll consider that Sukuna is not possessing anyone's body. Instead, he's just fighting in his own body back from the Heian era. How would things turn out in this scenario? First things first, Sukuna won't possess the 10 Shadows technique and Mahoraga, and for most people, this is where Sukuna loses the battle. But is that true? You see, we seem to forget that Mahoraga was definitely a contributing factor in that battle and helped Sukuna bypass Gojo's Limitless. We think that there's no other way that Sukuna could get rid of that Limitless, but this is wrong. People seem to forget that Sukuna's domain amplification and his domain expansion are already damaging Gojo. This basically changes everything. Now, we know that Sukuna doesn't need Mahoraga to bypass Gojo's Limitless. However, we saw that those cuts were definitely not enough to kill Gojo. So what makes us believe that Sukuna would still defeat Gojo? For this purpose, let's just compare Gojo and Heian-era Sukuna in different aspects. First, let's talk about hand-to-hand combat. Over the course of the manga, we've witnessed that Gojo is insanely strong, and his fists are more than enough to kill disaster-level curses, as stated by Jogo. Even special-grade sorcerers like Hakari and Yuta puked after receiving his punches, so Gojo is a clear winner in this category. You might argue that Sukuna was basically toying with Kashimo in his Heian-era form, and his 4 arms give him an upper hand over Gojo. Despite this, we witnessed that Gojo can handle multiple opponents at once, and he went up against Sukuna, Mahoraga, and the other Shadow. Now let's talk about reverse curse technique, and all the other things including curse energy and domain clash. Well, I'll keep it really short here, as we all know that Sukuna's domain expansion is just overpowered. It can also absolutely obliterate his opponents in mere seconds, but Gojo managed to survive his domain multiple times, which proves that he's an insanely capable RCT user. Sukuna, on the other hand, didn't have to use his RTC against any other sorcerer since they were just too weak for him. Despite this, he managed to tank 200% Hollow Purple, which is a testament to his RTC. If we compare these two, we can safely assume that both of them are equal in this regard. Talking about total curse energy, it's quite evident that Gojo has more curse energy, owing to his 6 eyes. Now it's time we talk about domain expansion here. Sukuna's domain expansion is just far superior to that of Gojo. In the original timeline, their domains clashed for like 5 times, and Gojo turned out victorious just once. and all this when Sukuna was taking the riskier approach. If he'd been trying to break his domain from the inside, things would have been a lot easier for him. He was just waiting for Maharaga to adapt to Gojo's Limitless. Another interesting thing I'd like to mention here is that Gojo had exactly 3 minutes and 19 seconds to take down Sukuna's domain, before his domain gets demolished. However, if Sukuna is using his full potential, he would have had even less time to take him down. Considering all these things, Sukuna would just fold Gojo if he was fighting with his full strength. In the previous 2 scenarios, we've considered the possibility that Sukuna fights Gojo with his full potential in Megumi's body and without Megumi's body, and both times, he turned out superior. Well, for this scenario, things are slightly different. The beginning of the battle proceeds quite similarly to the previous theory, with Sukuna going up against Gojo in his Heian era form. The battle proceeds quite similarly with Gojo ambushing Sukuna with 200% Hollow Purple, and Sukuna taking it rather easily. Following this, both of them engage in some hand-to-hand combat, and Gojo somehow manages to keep up with Sukuna despite his 4 arms. With this, both of them unleash their domains, and Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine comes out on top like the original timeline. Now this is where things get interesting. After losing in the Battle of Domains, Gojo utilizes every move in his arsenal, but he stands no chance against Sukuna, who's controlling this entire battle. Meanwhile, Yuji and Yuta are witnessing all this from the sidelines. After beating the literal shit out of Gojo, Sukuna decides to end him, but just then, Yuta and Yuji appear out of nowhere and save him. This surprises Sukuna as he wasn't expecting them to interfere, and he even gives them a chance to run away. However, seeing that their sensei is in danger, both of them decide to battle Heian Sukuna themselves. Well, it's quite obvious from Sukuna and Gojo's battle that these two don't stand a chance against Sukuna. Yuta opens his domain against Sukuna and even replicates his slashes, which shocks everyone. This gives them some hope that they might be able to take down Sukuna themselves. However, as the battle proceeds, even though both of them are somehow keeping up with Heian-era Sukuna, he eventually gets bored with them. He exclaims that it's about time they stop playing around and absolutely demolishes Yuta and Yuji in mere seconds. Gojo, who's still injured, is seeing all this. He instructs Yuta and Yuji to get out of there, but Sukuna doesn't allow them. Instead, he kills them right in front of Gojo's eyes. Seeing this unleashes something inside Gojo, who immediately heals himself with RCT. He ambushes Sukuna in a fit of fury and lands some nasty backflashes that almost takes Sukuna down. But owing to his insane durability, he survives. Gojo keeps attacking him with Hollow Purple and Reds, but Sukuna manages to tank all of them. He's realized that Gojo is not in his senses and blindly attacks him. The outcome in this battle is similar to the previous 2 scenarios, with Sukuna beating Gojo rather easily. You might as well say that Sukuna will be easier with Gojo not in his senses. Well, this raises some other questions as well, like what if Yuji and Yuta fought alongside Gojo against Sukuna? Would they be able to win this epic battle? I guess we can talk about that in the next What If. Till then, sayonara!